Okay, so one question that I sometimes get asked is why do I choose the motivation code and the Myers-Briggs, okay, particularly the Myers-Briggs step 2 as the instruments to use? I'm certified in both these instruments, so clearly there was a decision process behind that. Why did I choose these two instruments to be certified in? I've done for myself many different other assessments, and they've all been fun and helpful to a certain extent. But why I decided to invest in training and being licensed and continue to pay these companies money, these companies money in order to be able to use their instruments, right? I'll say a little about that, why the MCODE and MBTI, especially the MBTI step 2, and also how are they being customized for the interior journey within Clarity, all right? Okay, so why these instruments? The short answer, the most direct answer would be that in my own application, so I'm like my own client zero, right? Patient zero, client zero. If it doesn't help, if it hasn't been helpful to me, I wouldn't think of recommending it to others. Generally, I have to have tested it and experienced how it is helpful before I then use it to develop a resource, right, that can help somebody else. So these two instruments are the ones that I have found over the long term the most helpful and given me the greatest leverage in my ongoing interior journey, okay? For much more in-depth self-knowledge. So the focus here is self-knowledge, not team building, not building my marriage, all that kind of thing. I mean, all these instruments can potentially have those applications, right? But the application of my greatest interest is in this interior journey, in becoming my authentic self, in helping me become a whole and come alive and discover my unique path in life. Okay, so that's also what personal vocation discernment is. So in this specific application, in my experience, these are the two instruments that I have consistently found to be helpful. All right. So the motivation code is the only narrative-based assessment, okay, out there currently that is powered by stories. Stories here is your own fulfillment stories. Okay, so it requires you to look into your life and to remember and recall particular stories where you were like really alive, for example. So there's a process. And to choose different stories in order to use it for the assessment. Okay, within Clarity, I give even in this area, I give additional help on how to choose the best stories to get the most accurate results for your MCODE. Because in my experience with previous clients, again, I have found that sometimes people don't choose the best stories for this instrument, and there are different reasons for that, right? That's a different investigation I went through to understand that. So I have refined the process every time I've done this with a new batch of clients to make it easier for them to know how to choose a story so that the stories yield the results that that is supposed to yield in that sense. Okay, and because this is based on stories, it's your own narrative as well as science. So there are two components to this assessment. One is about your stories. The process itself really lends itself to reflection and deeper engagement and attunement with your inner self in a way that is really quite a lot deeper than any other personality assessments and tests that I have experienced. Okay, so that in itself is one, I think, really strong point for the MCODE. And it looks at your motivation design and your motivational flow. So it kind of like looks not at just the way you think or act. It looks at what fires you up, what keeps you going, and what you're really motivated to kind of like accomplish. Okay, not so much the task, but in terms of motivational energy, what gets you going up, what gets you going, what makes you come alive, and what keeps you persevering. When we are motivated, this is what happens, right? We will persevere even when it's difficult. So the MCODE looks at basically how were you designed motivationally, okay? So that's the MCODE. And then the Myers-Briggs step 2, which is distinct from the step 1. Step 1 is what most people are aware of, which is just the 4 letters, and you have a lot of free online kind of assessments. For the MBTI, which really I want to say is usually really, really not that accurate. And even the official instrument is never meant to be applied without a self-assessment. And you don't know how to do a self-assessment unless you're led through it by somebody who is trained and certified to do it. Okay, so basically, without going through a workshop or a one-on-one kind of a debrief or coaching, you won't really have done the actual Myers-Briggs instrument. Okay, now even then, okay, what I use is the step 2, which goes beyond just the usual 4 letters that you may be familiar with. You might hear things like INFJ, ENFP, ESTJ, all that kind of stuff, right? It goes into furthermore, between each of these facets, like extrovert, introvert, they look at 5 additional facets within introversion and extroversion to capture nuances. So 2 extroverts, for example, may have very different looking facets. You could be a very the enthusiastic introvert, for example, or you could be a very intimate extrovert. So intimate extrovert don't like being in crowds, don't like big groups, may not have a very large circle of friends. An intimate extrovert, which I happen to be, by the way, much prefers really small group, one-to-one, compared to sometimes they could have an introvert that is gregarious and, generally has a much wider circle or social circle of friends, maybe even more than an intimate extrovert. So that's just an example of the nuance that step 2 in MBTI goes into. And I think when we are trying to talk about deeper self-knowledge, this is important. And why I like this, I find myself utilizing what I know from the MBTI step 2 the most in a day-to-day manner to lead myself more gently, more compassionately, and more effectively to do what I need to do. Okay? As I live from a motivational design, I know what I'm motivated by. I know how to lean into my motivation. But, there are very sometimes concrete steps that you need to take to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish. And knowing my own MBTI, especially the step 2 nuanced MBTI, helps me to be patient with myself and know how to, influence myself, you could say, to lead myself in a way that is sustainable. Okay, so that's what I lean on, or how I lean on the MBTI step 2 for my own interior journey, to be more authentic and integrated in my life. Okay, so I found that using these 2 instruments together helps us to know ourselves intellectually and experientially, right? Those first 2 layers from more complementary perspectives, from 2 very complementary perspectives, and they kind of strengthen each other. Okay, so that's why those 2 instruments, why I chose those 2 instruments. Now, within clarity, there's an additional difference, right? Because I mentioned earlier that all these tests were not in and of themselves designed to help the interior journey. So within the journey for clarity, we don't go straight into looking at your motivational design or your personality and temperament. We don't go straight into the instruments. The first part is about attuning a bit more to ourselves and trying to surface and become more aware of our life scripts. The person that you've always felt driven that you needed to be, right? Because when you're aware of that, then we also lead you through, there's a process I lead you through to connect with how it feels in your body. Actually, it's not me. I actually get my friend and collaborator, Edwina Yao, whom you may recognize from my podcast that I've done a few episodes with her. So she's great at leading this, somatic experience, somatic kind of like exercises to get you more in touch with your body and how you feel and all that. So she's like a guest facilitator that I do bring on for clarity at certain key points. And this is one of the things I ask her to help, my clients go through an exercise to experience what it's like, how it feels in their body when they are trying to be the person that they think they should be versus when they are living from kind of like who they are. In your body, it actually feels different, right? So when you recognize how differently it feels, it makes it easier later when you're selecting stories, for example, for the MCODE, to know whether you're selecting the right stories. If you're selecting stories that actually do highlight those moments when you're living from your true self, you know your body, your nervous system kind of feels a certain way, right? If you chose a story because in your mind that was a great fulfillment story, you felt that you were really good at something, but you check in with how your body's feeling when you are remembering that memory, it may signal to you that there might be some survival energy there. There could be some drivenness there. You could be acting out of your life script there. Okay, so that's why that part is a huge, very important difference that I bring into clarity. And also the praxis assignments and exercises, so whether it's kind of like the homework in between sessions or the exercises that you're doing in the live session, sometimes they facilitate effective self-knowledge, okay? So that layer of tuning to ourselves, listening to ourselves, accepting ourselves, and that lays the very important groundwork that you can continue to build on beyond clarity into learning to lead yourself. So that's the huge difference. I say huge because I really do think it's huge. I mean, these are very important dimensions for the interior journey. Okay, and that's what personality tests on their own, for example, they cannot bring. And that's how I weave these things together within clarity to facilitate that journey for my clients in a small group, traveling in a sense, in this interior pilgrimage as a little band of, a little fellowship, right? A band of pilgrims, okay? And last slide here before I look at, I think there are some questions would be, so really, who would clarity help? Personality tests can, on their own, personality tests can help a very wide range of people, at different stages of the journey for different purposes. Okay, that's the beauty of personality tests and strengths finders and all that. But the way I put it together in clarity really is going to be, in a sense, it's meant for people at a certain stage in the journey. Then you will find it really helpful. If these don't really apply to you, then you're going to find it maybe a little hard to get into. You're not going to be able to reap the benefits of it, right? So clarity is designed for those who are ready to start integrating your shadows and not just feel safe by using your gifts. I say this from experience. In the past, when I did all these personality tests, a big part of it was because I wanted to know what my gifts were, what my strengths are, because these made me feel good about myself, because I always felt so bad about myself. I was never good enough, right? So I thought if I could learn what my gifts were or what my personality was, I would somehow figure out how to show up as my best self. But the reason behind that was because I didn't feel safe with myself. I wasn't ready to face my shadows. I didn't know how to integrate. I just wanted to feel safe, okay? If that's still where you are, then clarity is probably not for you. You need to be at least aware and ready to, aware that there are some shadows and, you have some basic sense of safety. Nobody's really mature in this, yet, but you've done some inner work and, already maybe in the past, and you're ready to look honestly at what might come up, right? So ready to start integrating your shadows, ready to stay longer at the being and not leaping into doing. Again, if you want to know about yourself so that you can just leap into doing more and be more effective, you might be impatient with how clarity unfolds because the focus of clarity is interior journey. There's a lot of focus on the sitting with and being with yourself as you discover who you are. It's helping you get to know yourself, build that relationship with yourself, okay? And building relationship is never about being productive. It's about learning to be with each other, in this case, you with yourself. You need to be eager to actually do the work yourself, to know yourself and not just be told, because that's how clarity is designed. It's not just a consultation method where I just lead you through something and I tell you this is what you are. I have created the curriculum, in a sense, I've broken down the process that I learned as the certified, practitioner of these instruments. I've broken down the process so that you can step by step follow it through in a way yourself, with my help and guidance, of course, but it's a way it's teaching you to fish and not just handing you the fish, right? With that deeper engagement, you actually learn more about yourself and you understand more about this instrument, so that even hopefully years after, you've done this, you remember enough, you keep using it. You want to come back and keep using it so that you will get more leverage and mileage out of them, just like I have. That's the hope, okay? And also, very importantly, it'll help people who are even after putting in all that work, willing to accept the uncertainty of the outcome of this journey, because that's the reality of the interior journey. We never really know what we will find out, and we never really know what will happen. We can trust that whatever we do learn and find out will not be wasted, right? But so often in the interior journey, we just don't know until we're there what the so-called outcome at the end of this, let's say the 8 months of clarity would be. Right? So if all these points kind of like sit right with you, then it could be helpful for you.